Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name's Ryan, and today I want to share something about family, respect, and learning when enough is enough. You see, for years, I helped my wife's family financially. I'm talking about covering their rent, emergency bills, groceries, you name it. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just did it because I thought that's what family is supposed to do. But even with all the help, there was always one person who made it clear that I was never truly welcome. My mother-in-law. No matter what I did or how much I contributed behind the scenes, she never accepted me. She barely even tolerated me. Things finally came to a head after a pretty nasty misunderstanding. It was during one of those arguments that she told me straight up, don't come back to their house for any occasion. And honestly, hearing those words hit me harder than I expected. After everything I had done quietly for years. After that day, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to stay away from their house. I was cutting off everything. No more financial support. No more showing up for birthdays, holidays, nothing. I was done being treated like a problem while still being the one carrying their burdens. Now, I won't lie to you. Making that choice almost ended my marriage. It caused a lot of tension between me and my wife. And there were days when I truly didn't know if we were going to make it through. But before we get deeper into that, I think it's important to take you back to where this whole story really began. Way before the arguments, way before the money, way before the resentment. Because to understand how we got here, you need to see how it all started. So, before everything blew up the way it did, it all really started with the first time I met Arya's family. Now, a little background. Arya comes from an immigrant family. They're very tight-knit, very traditional, and they hold some pretty strong ideas about what success looks like. When I first walked through their door, her mom didn't even try to hide how disappointed she was. She barely looked at me, and when she did, it was like she was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Honestly, it didn't take long for me to realize she was upset that Arya had brought me home at all. Later on, I found out why. Apparently, there was another guy, someone her mom had been pushing for. This guy wasn't just well off, he was rich, and he made sure everybody knew it. Expensive gifts, constant cash offerings, you name it. He treated Arya's family like a project he wanted to win, and he was definitely playing the long game. Compared to that, I probably looked like the worst option they could imagine. When I met Arya's family, I was still trying to get my life together financially. I had a decent job, but I wasn't balling out or driving anything fancy. For a little context about me, I didn't come for money, but I wasn't struggling either. My family lived comfortably, but we weren't the type to flaunt anything. The important thing is, I was independent. I didn't have my parents paying my bills, and I wasn't sending money back home to support anybody. I was standing on my own 2 feet, figuring things out myself. By the time Arya introduced me to her family, we had already been together for about a year and a half. Things between us were good. We loved each other, and we had already talked about a future together. Meeting her family was supposed to be one of those milestone moments. But instead, it felt like walking into a job interview I didn't even know I was failing. Even with all that tension, Arya still chose me. She told me straight up that she never had feelings for the other guy, no matter how much he threw his money around. She said she loved me, not him, and that was enough for her. Feeling like the luckiest guy in the world. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the worry in the back of my mind. We were staying in the same town as her family, and I knew that meant we wouldn't be able to just avoid them if things got complicated. I worried that her mother's disapproval wasn't just going to fade away. I worried it might hang over us like a dark cloud, waiting to break open when we least expected it. And deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before it did. After Arya and I got married, I knew I had to step up. So, I threw myself headfirst into my corporate job. I wasn't clocking in just for a paycheck. I was working overtime, taking on extra projects, saying yes to anything that would push me forward. On top of that, I also started doing side hustles online. It was a mix of freelancing gigs, selling things here and there, trying different ways to make a little extra cash. Anything to give us a little more breathing room. You would think that kind of work ethic would earn a little bit of respect, but not from my mother-in-law. During those early years when I was still finding my footing, Her attitude toward me didn't soften one bit. Every time I saw her, it was the same cold look, the same feeling like I was just not good enough to be part of their family. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how committed I was to building a future for her daughter and our kids, she never warmed up to me. And what made it even worse was knowing why. She believed, deep down, that Arya could have married richer. In her mind, my presence had robbed their family of the chance to have a son-in-law who could have thrown money around. I wasn't that guy, at least not back then. Eventually, after a few years of grinding, things started looking up financially. I got a couple of promotions, my side hustles picked up steam, and we weren't just surviving anymore. We were starting to live a little easier. And when that happened, I decided to do something I thought would help bridge the gap between me and Arya's family. I started helping out. At first, it was small things. I gave Arya money here and there to help cover her parents' rent when they fell behind. Then, as I earned more, we built up an emergency fund for them, especially because my mother-in-law had diabetes and there were always medical costs popping up. Sometimes, Arya would mention they were running low on groceries, and I'd send some money to cover that too. It wasn't because anyone begged me to. It wasn't because I was trying to buy acceptance. It just felt like the right thing to do. But here's the thing. Even though the whole family knew I was the one covering a lot of their living expenses, my mother-in-law was kept in the dark. It was almost like this unspoken rule that no one would say it out loud. No one would tell her, "Hey, Ryan's the reason you have a roof over your head this month." And because she didn't know, the way she treated me never changed. I'd ask Arya sometimes, "Don't you think it's time we told her?" Maybe if she knew, things would be different. But Arya would always say the same thing. "Not yet. She's old-fashioned. She's hard to please. Just be patient." And because I loved my wife, because I trusted her judgment, I kept quiet. I kept giving, kept helping, kept showing up, even while being treated like I was a mistake Arya never should have made. The rest of the family was different, but not necessarily better. My father-in-law and my siblings-in-law were neutral for the most part. They didn't treat me badly, but they also never stood up for me. Nobody ever said anything openly in front of my mother-in-law. No one ever corrected her when she talked down to me or treated me like an outsider. It felt like they all chose to keep the peace instead of standing up for what was right. Over time, this silence started to bother me almost as much as her disrespect did. I tried to ignore it at first, telling myself it didn't matter, that I was doing it for my wife and kids, not for her approval. But the truth is, no one likes feeling invisible, especially when you're making real sacrifices. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about feeling like no matter what I did, I was never going to be seen, appreciated, or even respected. And that was a hard pill to swallow. Thanksgiving had always followed the same routine. Every year, Arya would pack up the kids and drive down to her parents' house about a week before Thanksgiving Day. I stayed behind to wrap up work and take care of a few things at home, and then I'd drive over on Thanksgiving morning to spend the holiday with everyone. It wasn't perfect, especially given the tension with my mother-in-law, but I went along with it because it made Arya happy, and I wanted our kids to have those family memories. But that particular year, things went off track fast. Just a day after Arya arrived at her parents' house, she called me. She sounded stressed and immediately jumped into asking me to send more money for something unexpected that had come up. Honestly, it rubbed me the wrong way. I was tired of feeling like I was a wallet, not a person. I told her no. I said they needed to cut back on expenses and manage what they had better. I just said it calmly. I thought maybe if I set some boundaries, it would help change things. I didn't even get to finish explaining before the phone was yanked away from Arya. And suddenly, I was hearing her mother's voice shouting through the receiver. She accused me of trying to control Arya, of manipulating their family by withholding money. She said I was disrespectful, selfish, and ungrateful. And then she said the words that finally broke something inside me. "Since you have no respect for our family, don't come back to our house for anything." I remember holding the phone to my ear, feeling completely stunned. There wasn't anything to say. I knew if I tried to argue, it would only get uglier, and honestly, I was too tired to fight for a seat at a table I clearly wasn't wanted at. So I said nothing. I hung up quietly and let the silence between us do all the talking. Thanksgiving Day came and went. I didn't show up. I stayed home with a plate of takeout and watched the kids' favorite holiday movie alone. No one called to ask why I wasn't there. No one tried to check in. And the money I usually sent every month? I kept it in my account. I figured if my presence and my support meant so little to them, then maybe it was time they learned what life was like without it. After I stopped sending money, it didn't take long before the cracks started to show. Within the first month, my wife's family was already feeling the pressure. Their bills piled up faster than they could handle. Rent was late. The grocery money didn't stretch like it used to. Emergency expenses that used to be quietly handled in the background suddenly became real problems. I heard about it in small pieces at first, little comments Arya would make about her mom stressing out or her dad feeling overwhelmed. But I stayed quiet. I had made my decision, and I was sticking to it. Arya didn't take my silence well. She accused me of being petty, of letting my personal feelings cloud my judgment. She said I was being cruel, especially knowing her mother's health situation. She told me it wasn't fair to punish the whole family just because her mom said things she didn't mean. I listened to her, but I didn't say much back. At that point, I realized that explaining myself wasn't going to change anything. I had tried being the good guy for years. I had tried being patient. None of it mattered. So I ignored the accusations and kept moving forward. Then the call came from my father-in-law. I could hear how uncomfortable he was as he spoke, almost like he was swallowing his pride just to reach out to me. He didn't dance around it. He told me plainly that my mother-in-law's health was getting worse. Her diabetes wasn't being managed properly because they couldn't afford all her medications and treatments without my financial support. He said, and I remember his exact words, she could die if we don't get her the care she needs. Hearing that hit differently. I never wanted anyone to suffer or die, no matter how badly they treated me. I agreed to help, but only for health-related needs. Nothing more. Somewhere along the line, the truth finally came out to my mother-in-law. She found out exactly how much I had been supporting them all those years. Every rent payment, every emergency fund, every grocery trip where they thought the money just magically appeared. It was me. Suddenly, there was a shift. The woman who once couldn't stand to look me in the eye was now trying to act warm. She sent messages through Arya. She even once asked if I would join them for a family dinner. Honestly, it was almost funny to watch. But by then, it was too late. I didn't care if she accepted me anymore. That ship had sailed, and I wasn't interested in trying to rebuild something that should have been there from the start. I kept my distance and made it clear to Arya and everyone else. I would help if it was about her health, but anything beyond that, birthdays, celebrations, family dinners, I was out. I never went back to their house again. And honestly, I don't regret it. After everything that happened, I found myself thinking more and more about packing up and moving my family far away, to a new town, maybe even another state, just to start fresh. I thought about how different things could be if we weren't always so close, physically and emotionally. It was about protecting my peace and my marriage from the slow, silent damage that was being done by staying too close to her family's drama. But as you might guess, Arya wasn't on board with that idea. She grew up close to her family. Even after seeing how her mother treated me, even after realizing the truth about the money and sacrifices, she still struggled with the idea of leaving them behind. I can't really blame her. Blood runs deep for some people. But for me, loyalty isn't just about who you're related to. It's about who stands by you, who respect you. And the sad truth was, I didn't feel respected. Not by her mother. Not even, sometimes, by Arya when she excused their behavior. So here we are, standing at a crossroad. Me wanting to move on. Her wanting to stay tied to the same roots that hurt us. Looking back on everything, I realized this whole situation taught me a lot. Lessons I wish I didn't have to learn the hard way. The first lesson is this: no matter how much you give, some people will never see your value until you take it away. I spent years trying to win respect with money and kindness, and it made no difference. The second thing I learned is that silence and patience are good, until they become tools that other people use to disrespect you. Waiting for the right time to be acknowledged only made it easier for them to pretend I didn't matter. Third lesson. If your partner won't set boundaries with their family, you'll end up fighting battles you were never supposed to fight. That pressure almost cracked my marriage in half. Fourth, being the bigger person sometimes just makes you a bigger target. When you keep giving and swallowing disrespect, people think it's okay to keep piling it on. And lastly, the fifth lesson, and probably the most important, is that peace is worth more than pride, but it will cost you relationships you once thought were unbreakable. Now let me ask you, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done differently? Would you have kept holding back the money, even when it came to something as serious as health issues? Would you have swallowed your pride and kept playing nice just to keep the family peace? I'm really curious to hear what you guys think, because honestly, when you're in it, the answers aren't as easy as they seem from the outside. Thanks for sticking around and hearing my story. If you found any part of this helpful or relatable, go ahead and like the video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.